So, we are talking about really aligning our lives. It's not enough to say that the world is, mithya. It has a dependent reality, because that mithya world is where all the transactions take place, right? And that's where all our challenges happen. So you can't afford to just use Vedanta to say, okay, now everything is mithya, I have understood, so now I'm done. Okay, so that alignment includes that you need to understand how the mithya world operates and align yourself to the way it operates. Okay, so Karma Yoga is one framework that is given to align, because if I keep using the word alignment and then you don't know how and when and what, so certain frameworks are given which give us an understanding of what this alignment means. Okay, so the Karma Yoga, what it means is that first distinguishing in your mind, one has to be clear as to what I have a choice over and what I don't have a choice over. Because if you don't have clarity about that, you are just trying to do too much for things over which you have no control, and you are not doing enough for things that you actually have a say over. Okay, so that clarity is something which is extremely important, and it's just that fact, right? It's fact based, it's not advice based. Okay, so there we saw karmani eva adhikaraha. Okay, so you have a choice over your action. You always have a choice, right? Whether you do things, when you don't do anything, that also is an action. Not doing is an action, and doing it differently, and there are so many different options in doing that. Okay, so now the second question is, if I have a choice, how do I exercise that choice effectively? Okay, so there we saw another framework. One was Samanya Dharma and the other one was Swadharma. Okay, so that was all with reference to the choices that we have. Okay, now with reference to the result, you don't have a choice. Okay, so you don't have a choice. Now that, what does it mean? First of all, does it mean that actions and results are totally unconnected? No. Okay, if it was so, then the whole world would be random. There is no connection between your actions and your result. Then you have no way to know, if I want to achieve this, this is what I should do. But in everything that we do, we have an understanding that if I want to achieve this, this is what I should do. That implies that even though I don't have a total control over the result of the action, there is some connection between what actions and result. Okay, if there is some connection, then why things don't always go our way?
Because there are other forces also at play.
Absolutely. So that means that there is a law out there which connects our present actions with our own past actions, which we may or may not know, and also with other the factors over which we don't have any control. But the fact is that it is an amazing calculation which is done to give the right thing at the right time, whether I like it or not. Okay, that is the thing. If I conclude that the world is fair when everything happens my way, and the world is not fair when things don't happen my way, means who do I assume I am the law. I know all the factors, I know all the variables, but what is the reality? Do you know all the variables? You really don't know. So that means you don't really see the reality as it is. When you don't see the reality as it is, it creates suffering. So therefore, if you want to eliminate or reduce your suffering, you have no choice but to align yourself to realities. Because if your world, the vision of the world is not in keeping with how the world is, there is going to be some kind of a confusion. And with that confusion, there is suffering. So the minute you begin to see the fact that those laws give you the result and they are infallible in nature, then what will happen if you see this reality? Exactly. You'll align your behavior and say, okay, now if this is the result that I want, and if this action hasn't worked, what can I do now? So that means you'll be always in a creative mode, creative, dynamic mode, where you're not in a passive mode and the creating this kind of an understanding of impasse. Oh, I don't know what to, And the second most important thing is you will not enter into this victim psychology. It's just appalling how many people suffer from this, feeling of persecution. That is coming from what feeling about, there is a kind of a mental picture we create within ourselves as though you are right, you know everything, okay, and people are unfair, or the world is unfair. Okay, with this kind of a set, if this is the way where your orientation, then that can lead to what, you may not actually say it, but all your actions will be based on this given understanding, and if that will be disaster. Okay, so once you understand that there are laws which are infallible in nature, this whole tendency of, oh, poor me, why me, all that will go. Okay, and you will really try to make use of all your talents, your skills, and figure out what is it, if you, I think it was Nisha, you sent that thing. So it was you who sent. Okay, so in my thing it said Nisha. Okay, that was wonderful, right? Because it's like, yeah. So because yours comes. Okay, so yeah. So therefore, this whole thing that when you attribute your happiness or your sadness to others, you are actually making a very fundamental mistake. Okay. Now it doesn't mean. Please understand, it doesn't mean that people don't do anything. They do contribute, right, to how you feel. It's not like that they provide a trigger. They do provide a trigger, okay, and sometimes a very difficult trigger. So it is true, right? But in spite of the trigger, what the whole challenge or the whole fun of life is, what you have to come up with interesting, practical, innovative solutions. That's what gives meaning to your life. That's what keeps you going with enthusiasm and dynamism. So therefore, this is, and that you can't, that power that you are given, you can't hand it over to somebody else. You can't, give that power to somebody else you have to keep within yourself. Okay, so therefore, this is something that slowly, it is interesting how your capacity, please, when all these things that Gita is talking about is not artificially creating some kind of a, no response kind of a situation where artificially this equanimity and then not being in touch with your emotions. This is not what is being said. It's re-understanding the world and aligning yourself so that you live intelligently and you stay away from these kind of mental models which are unhealthy for you. Okay, so that was karma yoga. If you actually begin to live your life like that, you will see how much of a lot of these burdens that you have, you will start shedding. Okay, and the more and more you start shedding those burdens, your life will become really cheerful. Okay, now the other part, which is the last part of karma yoga, is now discussed, and that is discussed as as an answer to Arjuna's question. Arjuna is asking a question, which is a very interesting question. He says,
where is that?
Chapter 3, verse 1. So, in this, verse 13. Okay, so the question is, Arjuna uvacha jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tat kim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi keshava? Arjuna has a very interesting question. There are so many different parts of this learning of Bhagavad Gita, and by the time we do the second part, we've forgotten the first part. And this is how it all just is like all this information is there in our brain, but it's all scattered and it's not put together as one coherent vision. Okay, so the whole process of learning is what it has to, all these different parts that we have learned have to combine because they are all interconnected, and then it becomes about one coherent vision, and we live our life by that vision. Okay, and not confused and not see the connections between one part and the other. So Arjuna is very brilliant. He doesn't have that much of a problem because he has understood what the first part of the learning was and what is the second part, and he's trying to put it together, and he has a question. When Arjuna had this whole huge problem of what to do, what are the two things what was the first thing that Lord Krishna taught him? Now this is a question.
He said, when you think about your own, think about the bigger picture of who is your own. And also think about your beauty.
Yes.
Rather than...
Didn't he say that you are here and you have access to the knowledge that I give you as your...
Yeah, first he
this
talked
thing,
about
that's
what
what
he
he
is not.
said.
Excellent. Right? As Shona is saying, first he talked about a very big picture of what the reality of oneself is. Okay? What did he talk about? He said that Atma is already what? It's not this little individual that you think you are. What is the nature of Atma? Swataha Siddha. Self-evident I, which is not this little individual, and what is its nature?
Infinite.
Absolutely. Right? So that means this is something which is it something limitlessness can you produce through your actions? No. Why?
Because you are limited.
It's not a finite entity.
Excellent. What Tushna is saying is actually the logic, right? No action can produce limitlessness. Why? Because action by its definition is limited. If the action is limited, the result is going to be what? Limited. There is no action called limitless action. Right? So therefore, if Atma is limitless, it is already an accomplished fact. Please understand, it doesn't depend upon you doing something or not doing something. It is like, what do you do, what do you have to do to make space all pervasive? It's just that. It doesn't depend upon you doing something or not doing something. It's a reality. Please make a distinction between realities and what these actions. Realities means they are there. They don't require any doing on your part. Okay? So therefore, Atma is, Lord Krishna first talked about Atma as what? Nityaha, Shuddhaha, Shashvataha, Puranaha. This is a fact about Atma. Whether you know it or you don't know, Atma always is free and it is limitless. Sorry? Okay. Nityaha, then Shuddhaha, then Shashvataha and Puranaha. So these are all the facts that were talked about Atma, and if you remember or not, I showed you all the logics. It may seem like very far away to show you how it is so. Okay? Now, the second part of the teaching, okay, Shashvataha means that it is, Purana means always new. Now, always new, what does it mean?
Always renewing itself.
So it is not renewing itself, because in fact it's something which is, one thing is it is untouched by anything. So that means all these different, let's say the,
Stages.
yeah.
Untouched
So,
by any limitation.
so that means all the qualities that you see, okay, where do they belong? These qualities of, you say he, wonderful, okay. The qualities belong to, I can say, Tushna is this tall and I am that tall. So that means where does this quality belong? To the physical body, okay. And if I say she is very intelligent and I am not, where does it belong? To the mind, right? So that means that is subtle, right? So that means that these are attributes, please understand, and they are there. It's not that they are not there, okay, but the locus of attribute is what? Not Atma, it is what? Sthula Sharira. The problem is the physical body. The physical body, and in this case what? Subtle body. So neither these attributes belong to Atma, nor they are totally not there. They have a place. The place is not Atma. That is the thing. What is the nature of mistake we make? Absolutely. The nature of mistake is the body is tall or the body is short. We are not saying anything. We are not trying to make everybody equal, right? But Atma, those are attributes of the body and they are not attributes of I. That one is just cognitive, it's just clarity. You are not doing anything. Please understand. Are you doing anything to make your Atma free from being tall or short?
Like the example of the glass you gave.
Absolutely. It never takes on the attribute. Okay? Now, the mind. This is one of the, I teach Vedanta, and sometimes when people have listened to Vedanta, such a huge job is to undo all that they understand. Because when Shastra says that Atma is free, okay, from all the afflictions, where is it talking about? Is it talking about the mind or is it talking about Chit? It is talking about Chit. That means the thought is where thoughts are variable. Okay, and thoughts will undergo change depending upon what the situation. So therefore, different external situations will definitely what? Evoke some kind of responses that you can't totally avoid. Because of your understanding, you can have, that your whole emotional maturity can shift to a certain level, but no human being can avoid emotions. Okay. Now, when Vedanta shows that awareness is independent of the thought, that means what? Even if you have a very sad thought, is awareness affected by that?
It should not know.
It should not be, means it never is, right? What is the nature of mistake we make?
Making the awareness and the thoughts the same.
Excellent. As Saloni says, we lose cognitive distance between the awareness and the thought. There is a cognitive difference. How do I prove that? It's not because Vedanta is saying. There is a distance between awareness and thought. How can you prove that?
Because you're able to know that your thought is moving from this thought to that thought. And
Excellent.
So there's something that
Excellent. If you were the thought, what Shona is saying is absolutely right. This is the logic, right? If you were the thought, when the thought of sadness is there, you are what? Sad. When the thought goes, you should disappear. Do you disappear? No. You are very much present to see the presence of thought, which is that of sadness. Now that sadness thought is replaced by happiness thought. Do you become happiness? No. So that means the thoughts are variable and they are changing and they do have characteristics. But Atma, in spite of all these different thoughts, is what? Is free from all these thoughts. Now when people listen to Vedanta, they continue to keep their eye on what? in the mind, and then they say, oh, if I'm free, that means I should never have any thought which is what? Anything which I don't want. That means, what are you doing? You are continuing your I in what? Your mind. And
You're controlling your mind.
absolutely. You try to control your mind and make it like this awareness which is limitless. You are in for what? A huge mistake, which is like you'll never solve this problem.
No, equating the awareness with the mind.
Exactly. You're continuing. See, what is the problem? That right now there is a confusion between awareness and mind, and even after listening to Vedanta, you're continuing to do that. Whatever is talked about Atma, you want the mind to be. Mind is never going to be limitless. Mind is a limited instrument. Mind can never have one continuous the constancy. It's impossible. Okay, so please, if you begin to think that Vedanta will make you this kind of a constant non-responding person, it is never going to happen, and thank God it doesn't happen. Because you will lose all kind of what, I was just talking, the whole quality of life. You will be like a robot, like a zombie, not able to respond to different situations differently. There are different situations and there are corresponding emotions. You can't avoid. That's a part of, if you want to avoid that, you are trying to interfere with natural design, the laws of the universe. If you can't distinguish between the happiness that goes along with a happy event of, let's say, somebody's wedding, and what, a funeral, that you've lost your capacity to what? That somebody will put you in a mental hospital. So the wise person is not that person who has lost that lucidity and capacity to see that there are different corresponding emotions which are appropriate to that given emotion, that given particular situation.
So it's interesting then, let me ask you this question, that so people who are more evolved, spend a lot of time, say a teacher like you.
Yes.
Okay. So when they talk about the fact that they are not hassled by the day-to-day, it's not because they are become into some zombie state, right? It's because they have different priorities and their function at that time is different.
Excellent.
Isn't that
So that
what
means now that what Tushna is saying is so true, that your overall quality of your mind will change because what you understand now is so much more than what you understood earlier. So obviously your responses are going to change. They can never be as they were before. But there is no total equation between the mind and awareness. Right? So the quality of your mind will change, and it has to change because all that you have understood about life. Okay? So that means everything you put in perspective. Okay? Now, everything you put in perspective, what does it mean? Okay? Right now, there are three different things that we have to, there are three different realities. One is what we call Paramarthika. The other one is Vyavaharika, and the third is Pratibhasika.
What is the third?
Pratibhasika.
All very big words.
All big words, and you must understand who is this wise person, and what makes that person wise. It is not that lucidity or emotionlessness. What makes wise person is that there is a Paramarthika. Paramarthika is the absolute reality. What is the absolute reality? Paramarthika. Okay? Paramarthika is the absolute reality. What is the absolute reality?
That there is a Atman.
Excellent. Right? Wonderful. Good, Saloni, very good, right? So there is this absolute reality, which is what one reality, which is what the truth of, it's infinite and it is truth of everything, every object, time and space.
So absolute reality is that Atma equals Brahman.
Absolutely, Atma Ekal Brahman, right? So that is
Equals Brahman.
your Atma, I, is not this small little entity, it is limitless. This is what we call the absolute reality. Okay? Now, there is what we call Vyavaharika reality. What is Vyavaharika reality? This table is an empirical reality. Right? Even though it is not the absolute. Why is it not absolute?
Because it's dependent.
Excellent. It is dependent. I'm very good, because it's good that you begin to apply what I have taught you in a coherent fashion to come up with a certain vision of world. So as Shona says, that this is not absolute because it has a dependent reality. Now, just as the table has a dependent reality, the body also has dependent reality. The stars far away also have. Excellent. Anything which is known to you and unknown to you. The faraway stars, planets, so many different, black holes. All these are what we call any object which is known to you and unknown to you. Okay, they all have what we call Vyavaharika reality, empirically true, right? But not absolutely, not Paramarthika. Okay, and there is a third reality which is a very big reality until the time that it is solved, and that is what we call Pratibhasika. Pratibhasika is a typical example that the Shastra gives, that Gita and Upanishads give, is if you are in a forest and if you and there is not enough light, and if there is rope and you see it as snake, then that is, can you, exactly. So that means, can you say it has the same reality as the table? No. Right? Because why? This snake is there because you see it. Table, it is there, therefore you see it.
So you see this distorted vision.
Absolutely. Vyavaharika is defined as it is there, therefore you see it. Pratibhasika is I see it, therefore for me it is. Now, your question. Now, my question to you is: who is a wise person and who is not wise person in terms of this framework? Think about it.
One who sees Paramarthika reality.
And
Who understands and who does not have any Pratibhasika.
wonderful. Total Pratibhasika is not sensible. It's not possible. But
Distortion.
the
But
distortion.
there's one who sees all the realities, recognizing them for what they are.
Excellent.
Because that's all commentary. Now, if you can't see anything and you imagine that there is a figure in front of you, that is the reality for that 5 seconds or 10 seconds, right? But you can also go along then and say, oh, now I'm in a world of ghosts. Or you can say, okay, because there was no light and there was a distortion, I saw that. So
And then
you would encounter all as a human being.
No, and I also
Recognize
think
it.
to recognize and act for what it is and not
Yeah.
ascribe intention where it doesn't exist.
Yes, of course.
Wonderful. So now, who is a wise person and who is not the wise person with reference to this framework?
Sees the totality of it.
Excellent.
Or whatever the variables are.
So that means, imagine before you come to Vedanta, the Paramarthika doesn't exist. Please understand. Paramarthika, which is what? This oneness, which is the reality, in your awareness, in your understanding, it doesn't exist. right? So you start with, look at the distortion that you have, right? Paramarthika is not known, not at all, it's nowhere in your understanding. Vyavaharika, which is a dependent reality, is taken to be what? The reality. So Vyavaharika is taken to elevate it to absolute. Wonderful, right? So that means that Vyavaharika, you take it as Paramarthika. And even some of your Pratibhasika, you take it as what? At Paramarthika. So there is such a distortion. The starting point is such a distortion. You understand the magnitude of this distortion? Paramarthika is not recognized at all. Vyavaharika is given the status of Paramarthika, and even your Pratibhasika is given the status of Paramarthika. So that means you start with a huge distortion. Okay? Now, wisdom means what? Excellent. Recognizing what is what.
First to recognize basically Paramarthika, because that is the one that you don't know. So first you understand and recognize that.
Wonderful. So that means when Bhagavad Gita is explaining this Paramarthika, immediately people say, oh yeah, but this is something too far away from me, right? So you just talk about my day-to-day life, because I'm only interested in, how to deal with my mother-in-law and my father-in-law, and that's all people's universes, right? So therefore, this is exactly what Chandana is saying. It's so critical if you want to live, with certain amount of objectivity. It's very critical that you know Paramarthika. That analysis is very much what, because only when you understand Paramarthika, this reality is what no longer Paramarthika for you. This is there. You can't say the table is not there, but it will have its what? Right place. Yeah.
You can separate.
You can say, hey, this is happening at an empirical level. It's true, it's happening at empirical level.
But have to intelligently.
Absolutely. At that level, very, very, Shona is saying so important, because if you don't understand Vedanta properly, right, when things are happening at empirical level, you bring to your mind what? That absolute, and then you say, yeah, but this is just mithya. This is a problem. Empirical level requires what? Your dealing. Yeah, and that dealing is what? All understanding karma, understanding dharma, because at empirical level all these laws operate. Laws of psychology, laws of gravity, all this operates at empirical level. You can't ignore that, because what? There is Paramarthika. So that means the Vyavaharika has its what? Corresponding responses. Intelligent responses, as Shona is talking about.
So what's the benefit of knowing Paramarthika?
The benefit of knowing,
Issues
because
are all at the empirical level.
your issues
You're
are,
unhappy or something.
it is,
all at the empirical
as I
level.
told you, the cognitive distance between the actor and the role. If the actor forgets that I'm only this, the role starts seeming the reality, then you lose cognitive distance. When you lose cognitive distance, you go to mental. If the actor who's playing the role of a beggar starts thinking, I'm a beggar, what will you do to that actor? You will send that actor, he said, he needs mental treatment, because he has lost that cognitive distance between the empirical, what is the role and what is.
So what you're saying is if there's an emotional response to something, and that's all at an empirical level. So if whatever, somebody's talking about X, Y or Z, and that is affecting them emotionally. So you're saying you understand that, but separate your role.
So in that, so what happens
all
is,
your actions
so
at an empirical level,
so
right? So the knowledge of Paramarthika is going to help
knowledge
you.
of Paramarthika is an extremely critical, because all behind all your actions, what you believe about yourself, right, is going to be the underlying something which may not even manifest, but is going to be the underlying deciding factor. If you think you are limited, if you think that you are highly vulnerable, if you think that you are somebody who cannot control anything, so that is going to determine how you view the situations and how you respond to it. So that means if you want to be in alignment, if this is very big reality about you which you have no idea about, and if you have no understanding of that reality, then you start with a very skewed understanding of I. When that means it will percolate in all your transactions. That inadequacy, that limitation, that sense of lack, that is something which will, that exactly.
No, but I still, again to ask a question.
Yes.
That you give like a practical example, because I can't understand. Because also this absolute awareness, I mean, we know that it is there.
Yes.
We don't know it.
Exactly. So that's the thing. So that means if you are the wise person,
Right.
then all these things are absolutely clear.
Right.
Right now, what has happened is, right, there is no doubt about what is where and having an appropriate response.
Right.
Right? So therefore, first of all, even to know that reality, absolutely, you need alignment here. In your empirical level, you need alignment. Because in your empirical transactions, if you have so much, non-clarity about what is within your control, what is not within your control, your whole transaction is all, inappropriate, and you load it all onto I.
So then, what do you mean load it all onto I?
So that means you think I am the awareness which is actually the truth of the whole universe, which is your true nature, right? You think I am only this much, and your emotion of, let's say, jealousy gets loaded onto I. Your emotion of sadness gets loaded onto I. So your whole I is loaded with all kinds of things which it is totally free from.
So, to take that example further, if you see that I'm jealous of you,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, I see
Yeah.
it, do I play it out? Do I say, what is it that's making me jealous? How do you bring that stability to yourself to see that? Very often you say, okay, I'm in this Vyavarika,
Yes,
but
yes.
how do you separate it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if I
Yes.
just try to understand what you said so far, that if you don't want to infuse this jealousy and sadness onto I, which you are doing because you're living in this Vyavaharika world, by knowledge that there is an absolute reality, you stop being so consumed by these emotions.
Absolutely. Because you understand that this is
There
a
is
mind,
more to it,
there is a
yes.
mind, absolutely. Because there is a mind, there are distortions at the level of mind, and you need to undo those distortions. True, this is a fact.
Even though it affects your day-to-day life.
It affects your day-to-day life because there are distortions which you have not taken care of. So that means you do what needs to be done, but if the crystal is clear and you see redness in crystal, there is a cognitive problem there. You can't not solve it. If you want to be in touch with reality, you have to know what the crystal is clear. Why? Because the crystal is clear. That is reality. And if that reality happens to be I, and if you say, why should I bother if my I is big or not? Hey, that is a big, if you don't see the need to undo that mistake, that itself shows the distortion. If I'm limitless, and if I say I want to live like I'm highly limited, and what difference does it make?
No, but I'll come back to again her example. So you say that I will not be consumed by, say, the emotion of sadness because there is a bigger space.
The much larger
There is
picture.
a much
Larger picture.
But what would that picture be that
So-
at that time?
Exactly. See, at that time, this is the problem that people make. This is the biggest problem that people do, right? When I have, let's say, an emotional problem of, let's say, jealousy, okay? And where is that, what is the level of that problem? Empirical. Please don't confuse the realities, right? It is at an empirical level. if the problem happens at empirical level, what level of solution is needed? At what level the solution is needed? At empirical level. If I bring to my knowledge that I am already free, I will create a huge confusion of realities.
So then what's the point of knowing that you're free?
What did you say? If I've already said that I'm free.
What's the point? That is the whole point, because what is where, that is recognized. It's a role and the actor. The actor, if you are playing the role of an beggar, and if you start believing that you are the beggar, then what?
So if I use the same example of sadness or
Yes.
jealousy, so you have to solve your sadness or your jealousy at an empirical level.
Yes.
Right? So how does it help you to know that there is an absolute reality?
Because the whole thing is like, if your whole vision is skewed, if empirical seems like absolute, you're giving it a wrong place.
So what you're trying to say is maybe, or what I understand is that this is just one part of your life and there's a huge reality. You must deal with this issue now and there's a bigger picture actually.
See, the thing, what happens is that little problem that we have is there, right? For me, it assumes what proportion?
So this is
A huge proportion, because I start with a whole totally distorted vision of who I am and what the world is.
So there is a difference between two shadows.
So that means that this reality, which is what, in fact, I play so many different roles, and in one given role I have a problem, right, which is a fact. But for me, if I don't have the proper perspective, that what becomes 95% of my mental life.
Right. Okay, got it. And so if you're saying that, suppose you're talking about sadness or jealousy because of one role you're playing, say maybe in your family, but you have many other roles to play, so don't let that thing consume the rest.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is such an important thing, right? Because if you let it all consume, if you don't have lucidity, see, it's all about putting in place realities.
So is it right to say that there is a difference between thought and awareness?
Yes.
Thought, which is perhaps jealousy, but you must be aware of the fact that you are jealous and that you have to put that right.
Wonderful, right? The very fact that the awareness is independent of it, it doesn't mean you don't take care of jealousy.
So you solve it at that level.
But you solve it at that level, absolutely.
So that problem is solved at that
That level.
With the knowledge that this larger awareness.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's what I mean. So what belongs where, and you deal with that thing at that level. Otherwise, in your mind, everything is confused.
So nobody says let the jealousy be and it doesn't matter, it's not important.
You have to tackle it, but you have to give it the right place. If you don't give it a right place, you elevate it to the reality, or you negate it. That is what lack of clarity, lack of lucidity.
And to know the ultimate reality helps you deal with that.
Absolutely, because you put it in its place, that empirical reality. Yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, there is something which I need to correct. So you put everything in its own. That by putting everything in its right place itself, a lot of your the magnitude of the problem automatically disappears.
Your question, Nandita, to know this Paramantika helps you put that into
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the need?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's that if you say have a problem or sadness or
Yes.
sorrow, then you know that can't take over because
Every
you know
role
that there
that you
is a larger picture. I mean, you don't know exactly, but you know that there is. So it won't stop you from having enjoyment in different parts of your life or different, taking on the different roles.
It's
where
like
they
the
may not
actor
be.
constantly being reminded that I'm not really the beggar. So
Excellent.
that,
And this is a fact, it's based on a fact. Please understand, it's not like advice. It is a reality, and if the reality confusion means there's a huge confusion out there. The framework from what I'm acting is not.
to play the role either.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or and then also pretending that it doesn't exist because there is a larger picture is also a distortion.
It's a distortion.
You have to deal with it, but understand that it is a limited problem, that it's not going to take over your life.
And you have to deal with it because everything comes into play when you're Swadharma, your vasanas, it's all
Excellent.
a huge network that is connected with logical sense.
Absolutely. So as Shona says, so that means unfortunately when people listen to Vedanta, right, they want to apply this reality of oneness to that situation. So what do? They inappropriately negate this. And what they say is, oh, I am this awareness, so this is a passing thought. Can you use this knowledge like that?
No.
No.
You have to address issues.
You have to address issues, but you have to address issues where they belong. You have to see where they belong in hierarchy of things, and then deal with it at that level. There is a total clarity. That clarity is what makes the person a wise person. The empirical issues have to be dealt with at empirical level. You can't give it an absolute reality and then make it all consuming. That's because it's not a fact. It assumes totally huge proportions which actually it doesn't have.
So this relates back to Purana by saying this is what Purana is really, that whole Paramarthika.
So that means that is this whole Paramarthika, which is untouched. It's a fact. Right? Now, let's come back to this. Now, does the wise person not have any pratibhasika at all? Of course not. Nobody can live totally, it's impossible. Right? So our teacher used to say that when you are subjective, and if you know that you are subjective, then you are objective. You're okay. Because a lot of times, when is your subjectivity posing a problem? When you don't know. You are subjective, but you start thinking that this is the right thing. When that happens, that means you have lost there is lack of lucidity. So that means there is always going to be some amount of subjectivity that nobody can totally avoid. But when you recognize that I am being subjective now, then your objective. Then you don't start thinking that this is the reality. So what is the difference between a wise person and a non-wise person? Knowing what is what and having a right response, recognizing at what level it is happening.
So putting everything that you encounter in its rightful space.
Absolutely. It is in its rightful place. You are neither denying it nor you are giving it over importance. There is no confusion in where it belongs.
That's why actually with a wise person, if any difficulty comes, they are not fully consumed by
Absolutely.
that. They are able to find a solution to it at that level rather than letting it take over their...
Absolutely. It's that clarity. It's the clarity. And it's not a detachment.
Yeah.
This is what I want to really talk about. This nothing to do with detachment. What is detachment here?
In fact, you have the wrong response.
Yeah. If you have a detachment, you will have such a wrong response, right? So as I think in this particular class I told that, now I don't know which class I told, that in this whole thing of detachment, imagine that your daughter has had an accident, let's say for example, okay, and your husband is asking you to be strong. So that means what? Strong means what?
Don't show emotion.
Don't show emotions.
No, strong means deal with the situation.
One second. Most of the time, if it is dealing with situations, then it's right, strong. But generally, what people mean when they say be strong is don't show emotions. Now, the daughter, what is you think the daughter is expecting when you come to see her? Exactly. If you're not upset, what the daughter, you'll create a confusion. What confusion will you create?
The daughter will think you don't care.
Exactly. You'll create a confusion out of your whole big wisdom of detachment, that what the daughter will think that you don't care, that you don't, and in fact that you don't love. The amount of harm you will do to that child is just, you will make that person psychologically a confused human being.
This is another thing they said in that Rishi case, that the mother was not crying.
Yeah, in that implicated, yeah, exactly. Yeah, there was this case where absolutely, that she didn't have corresponding emotion. So that's why she was implicated, because then she had to go to jail, because if the child, something happens to your child, it's only normal that you have this emotion. So here, spirituality does not make you an abnormal human being. It makes you a refined human being who's able to deal with emotions which are the appropriate emotions, but with a much bigger understanding, with certain amount of lucidity, where you don't get totally caught by that emotion, but at the same time you don't deny that emotion. So spirituality is not about creating some kind of, oh, Atma is never affected, so therefore what you want your mind never to be affected. That is the biggest problem. You give mind, what level the mind enjoys, tell me now. Vyavaharika, it is a fact. And what is Paramarthika? This awareness which is free. If that mind which is Vyavaharika, you take it to be the absolute and you want it to be limitless and constant, you are continuing, you are multiplying your confusion in the name of Vedanta.
So you're basically saying that when you live at the Paramarthika level,
You are not living.
No, I'm
Yeah.
saying that you're conscious that you're more than the sum of your emotions and your soul.
Exactly.
And that you deal with everything in the right perspective, always aware that you're more than
Absolutely.
the sum of your...
Yes, absolutely. Because there is a much bigger fundamental reality about you, which is much more than your body and the mind. And that's a fact. It's not like you're creating, it's not an advice or positive thinking or anything. It's a fact. You have to be alive to this fact.
And then when Pratibhasika takes over, which it does, you bring yourself back and put everything in.
Excellent.
Think to bounce back.
Absolutely.
Capacity to bounce back.
Absolutely. So that means there are going to be times where Pratibhasika will take over. And it's nothing wrong. Please don't label yourself as, oh, I'm not spiritually still very evolved, because Pratibhasika will take over.
So basically, so a situation has made you extremely subjective.
At times, yes. At times, see, for example, in this case, if let's say one is at empirical level an appropriate response, that the mother would be upset if the mother sees child, injured or whatever, having an accident or whatever. Okay, but if the mother starts saying that, oh, my life, or it cannot respond properly, loses lucidity as to what to do, and gets into a panic thing where actually from there makes wrong decision, then that is what Pratibhasika.
And usually it is fear that makes you...
Absolutely.
stay
So
in
that means there is so much jumble up. So there is one healthy, appropriate response which is to be upset. But the second thing is how to that being upset doesn't cross its limit and become what that whole fear and that the whole big picture you make, and then you start operating from that picture of panic and you get really upset with the doctor. I have seen that.
But if you have the knowledge of Paramarthika, then you come out of that into this rather than go here.
Absolutely. So all three. So that means, yeah, absolutely. It gives you the total spectrum, which is the reality. In reality, there are three things: Paramarthika, Vyavaharika, and Pratibhasika. If you don't even know that there are three things, Where are you? You are operating from just some basic confusion. In fact, for you, both there are no three things. For you, there is only one thing, because your absolute is what both empirical sometimes and sometimes your pratibhasika.
And it has to be like that because you are a human being, you're not God.
Absolutely.
You're not going to have that
So-
subjective. It's because you operate from that self.
And you know what? This mind is conditioned by how many lifetimes of our understanding which is wrong about who we are and the responses. So therefore, you'll never have a perfect instrument. Please understand. Perfection is never at the level of instrument. Perfection is where Atma is free. That is the only perfection. There is no other perfection. In other things, you just have to make use of that instrument and make it sharper. True. You have to make your mind much sharper, your capacity to discern much better, capacity to detect when you are entering into this subjectivity and bring it back into empirical reality. Even that empirical reality, you don't give it the absolute status. It's all just about what you understand, the clarity with which you operate in this world. Being totally alive to what is. Alive to what is. That is what makes you a wise person. Okay, so now imagine that Surya gives for his management students, he gives an example. He says, imagine you're in Calcutta and you have a map of London.
How do you navigate?
How do you navigate?
First discard the map of London.
Yes.
It's the same thing. You are in this world, you have a map of your mind map which doesn't correspond to outside world. And then you are navigating. If you want to navigate accurately, what do you need to do? You need a corresponding map, without which you will be lost. You cannot but be lost. If you want to live in the world, you have to understand what the world is. What are the three realities? If you don't understand and say, yeah, so what if I miss the biggest reality, and so how will it make difference in my life? You will give that empirical reality the absolute status, and you can't control things, and what will happen? You will have feelings of persecution.
You will just reduce your life.
You
Your life becomes smaller and smaller with your less and less understanding.
Absolutely. Because that less understanding becomes lesser and lesser and lesser, because you keep on acting on those inaccurate understanding, and the distortions increase over a period of time. They multiply. So therefore, wisdom does not mean no emotions. Wisdom does not mean detachment. Wisdom does not mean that you will be in some state of constancy.
Wisdom is being able to discern the variables in your life for what they are.
Absolutely. And put your eye in its right place.
That automatically gives you the correct detachment.
It's a correct perspective.
You don't.
It puts your life in perspective. The whole thing is in perspective. You don't lose perspective. When there are things, they are there. When they are not, it is like otherwise you are confused. Okay, and Vedanta makes you at times more confused if you keep on using Vedanta at an empirical level.
So what we were talking about just now is, to know there's a bigger picture, to put things into perspective, basically to have perspective, do you need to know that there's a paramarthika for that?
Yeah, because see, my
sort of thought back to Mitali was, it's not easy to put things into perspective, and it helps doing it through Vedanta.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if you have another.
See, it's a matter of, if this individuality, which is a relative position, it seems like an absolute to you, right? Your whole self, your self definition of I comes from this relative reality which is not absolute, and every transaction is going to be done with that understanding. Then is it going to affect your understanding or not?
It just limits it, right? Because
Yeah.
you are giving yourself no more space.
So I'm getting, yeah.
Because you don't know that awareness
Yeah.
doesn't know it, but you know that it brings
There
a
is
dimension.
You know that there is.
There is a
that there
bigger
is a
picture.
bigger picture which you don't necessarily know, but therefore if you're seeing something like this as opposed to like this, you can see maybe more space for yourself to deal with the perspectives that they are
Yeah.
difficult to deal with, rather than giving yourself a very finite resource base to deal with. That's how I understand.
See, it's like if I ask you this question, that the actor, when he or she knows that I'm not the beggar, will it make a difference in when the person is acting?
Yeah.
Yeah, huge difference.
But does it mean that the person will not play the role of a beggar accurately, or just they say it's different because it's my role, it's not me, so I will not do a good job? Will be a very bad actor. Will do, engage. But what gives freedom is what? Understanding that I am much more than this role. This is a level at which is a very deep fundamental level. It's extraordinary.
And actually, that's why so much of Vedanta is devoted to this understanding of I, and so many things are negated to get you what the I is,
Yes.
because it is difficult. I mean, from what they are saying, it's I think very evolved to actually relate to that concept.
So on the one hand, you need to actually not believe that you're the role, but on the other hand, if you don't engage enough, is also negative.
Excellent,
You won't be a good human
excellent.
being if
You
you don't-
absolutely right. If you use Vedanta to not engage enough in that role,
So as
that is as bad.
Correct.
Because as an actor,
Use the
at a,
knowledge in that way.
in that way, that if you again you go off.
So a lot of people who get spiritual kind of disengaged.
Absolutely. So this is what I'm trying to say. If you understand what I'm saying, it will just put everything in order. Otherwise, people, without Vedanta is a problem. With Vedanta, wrong understanding Vedanta is equally a problem or even more problem. As Priya says, it's so critical that that freedom that comes from knowing that I'm not the role is something which is, you can't just say, what difference does it make whether I know that this is a role or whether I think it is me. It makes huge difference. But that knowledge, you cannot say, will make the person indifferent to the role.
It has to be at a subtle level.
You have to understand where that position of that role is and how important it is to play that role, but at the same time understand I'm much more than that role. That's what will make you engage fully and at the same time have inner freedom.
Because you have to have action. You can't.
You can't, absolutely. If you use this reality that I'm not the role and play not a convincing role of a beggar, you will get stones from the audience.
That's very well explained. And
That's a very well explained. It's a very well explained. Thank you, Priya. That's very well articulated. Okay, Vedanta, for Vedanta you need a refined, just the whole thing is far more refined than what the simplistic categories that we make, and we don't understand the intricacies. That's what takes us off. Okay, and therefore and also we translated, because if I'm free, then in every relationship there should be total freedom. Is it possible? Not possible.
Because it's at the Vyavahara.
Yeah, at the Vyavaharika level. Okay, so therefore, this is this is.
Sorry, just one second. Back to what she said. See, engaging fully is also part of the dharmic and karmic duty, right?
Absolutely. So this is where, what do you, when I talk about karma and I talk about dharma, at what level am I talking about? Vyavaharika.
And Swadharma.
Swadharma, everything is at Vyavaharika level. So that means I have to, if I really want to align to realities, I also have to align not just that Paramarthika, but also at empirical world. I have to understand how empirical world works, and I need to align. Good. I'm so happy you asked these questions, Nandita, because these questions trigger huge, clarity. Because after years of Vedanta, people don't know how to, how to use this knowledge in its right way. Not at all, not at all. This is something with reference to which I tell you, even teachers of Vedanta are confused. So if you don't ask this question, it all continues with the confusion. So this is a critical question that you asked. It's extremely important. It will always remain a fuzzy thing. So no, please don't think like that at all. And I'm not here to just finish the text. I want you to understand Vedanta properly.
How to apply it.
And how to live a proper, healthy, meaningful life with this vision. And not to multiply your confusions even using this vision inappropriately. Okay, so therefore this so now the one thing, what is the time? 12. No, we still have time or not? Okay, so now back to Arjuna's question. Arjuna asks this question and he says, this reality that you are telling me is what? It's an already accomplished fact. You don't need to do anything to make Atma what? Free. It's already free. Okay, so he says, if Atma is already free, and if the purpose of life is to know this reality about oneself, then what should I be doing? Just studying and knowing what the nature of Atma is. So here he says, he asks this question, Jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tatkim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi keshava. If Atma is already free and my whole confusion comes from not knowing that Atma, then my whole pursuit should be what? To know this Atma. Then he says, if that is the case, why are you asking me to do karma? To do actions? And not just some ordinary action, it is what? Karmani ghora. Ghora karma means this is a very difficult action that you are asking me to perform, and that is what? Fighting against my own cousins and also waging a huge war. Clever question.
It comes exactly back to our
It
discussion.
comes back to what, like what Nandita is saying. If I just need to know that, I just should know that. Why should I do anything? Because Atma is already free. And my...
Can I answer the question?
Yes, please do.
So it's because he's saying that you're understanding all this, but you are living at the Vyavaharika level, so you've got to act. You can't just be in this delusional Paramarthika level.
Wonderful.
Play the role.
You have to play the role. You have to engage.
Fight against adharma. There's dharma.
Yes, absolutely. right? So the very question implies that the person hasn't understood. And therefore, what Lord Krishna is saying is, you can't use this reality, which is a half-baked reality, as Krishna says. We think that we know, but actually, how many people have clarity about, all these completely clearly understood? It takes time. Okay, so he says, in order to understand it accurately, you also have to understand that there are 3 levels. And at that level, what is appropriate is, you can't use this knowledge of Atma being free to not do what needs to be done. Because this whole problem that he is faced with is at empirical level. So using this reality and not doing your karma and not responding to situations appropriately means what you haven't understood in the first place. Because if you had really understood, you would not ask this question. That means you're mixing up.
That means you are just shirking your response.
Yeah, you're using this so-called superficial knowledge which you haven't even really understood to to respond to situations appropriately.
That's actually lazy.
That's being lazy. Right? So therefore, Lord Krishna is saying that at empirical level, now there is one more dimension which is added. He says, the next verse, it's a most beautiful verse, and that completes, this next verse completes the discussion of Karma Yoga, and then it moves on to another topic. Okay. The next verse is Yagnathat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. Okay. So up to now, how the empirical world works, we saw 2 things. As Shona was saying, one is what? Law of dharma and law of karma. Okay. Now there is the third reality that you must keep in mind when you are acting in this world, and that is yajnatha. That then completes your vision of how this whole empirical world works. Yajna means something, it's actually a Vedic ritual. Okay? Every morning you get up and you see the reality of the interconnectedness of the world. Okay? The sun, which is what so far away from you, has a role to play in your existence. You're connected. Your life is connected to the sun. Your life is connected to the waters. Your life is connected to the trees. Your life is connected to all the air. Your life is connected to all the different individuals that are known to you and unknown to you. That you come in this whole empirical world is what we call Indra's net. Connections within connections within connections within connections. Okay? And if you live your life as though you against the world, you are, what is your vision? You are part of one whole system, and you don't recognize that whole system and your part in it. You see yourself as what? An individual, and system as something which is outside of you. What is going to be the nature of your action? Irresponsible. Selfish, grabbing, self-centered. Okay? You need to come out of that framework. You need to bring in mind reality of interconnectedness. It's a fact. Whole Vedanta is all about being alive to facts. It's not about advice. It's not about controlling the mind. It's what giving your mind what right information so that it grows and it becomes wise. Okay, so this is whole thing about imagine every morning you remind yourself about your interconnectedness with everything else, all the elements, human beings, living beings, everything. Okay, that would lead to some major fundamental shifts in your psyche. These shifts are from isolation to connection. Not an ordinary shift. There's isolation that we have with reference to world, feeling lonely, feeling uncared for. Okay? Then from dissatisfaction, the minute things don't happen my way, there is this whole dissatisfaction. From dissatisfaction to gratitude. So many, in fact, it's interesting, 10 years ago, or 10, 15 years ago, when I was with the UN, there was a whole study about what is going to be the next challenge in the world, right? And many years ago, almost 15 years ago, they identified water as one of the biggest problems. Potable water. And I used to wonder, I said, on this earth, how much is water? 70% water and 30% land. So that means there is so much water, we are surrounded by nothing but water, yet what is going to be the problem? Water. Scarcity of water. Okay, so that means with all this technology, what we haven't figured out is how to use all this ocean water to make it into potable water. But we have come, in this design, in that design, it knows how to do it. The universe, the world, the earth, how does it make the ocean water into potable water? What is the mechanism? Through the rains. This evaporations. So that means our human technology, we are nowhere near it, but we have come in a design where that technology is available. Okay? That ocean water is evaporated with sun, forms into clouds, and at the right point it brings water in form of rains, which then becomes potable drinking water.
That's why they started cloud seeding as one of the sort of remedies.
So that means if you want to intervene, what do? Do you just randomly do something? You have to see how the world works. You have to understand the whole system, and within that system there are intelligent interventions. Because you come in a system which is not a random system, it's all interconnected. Interconnected with incredible amount of intelligence and precision. So this is why for a few days it was interesting that in my building there was no water at all. There's and I live right in front of the ocean. This is irony.
Yet
We feel so powerful. Exactly, they still can't do it.
But it would be interfering too much. That's what global warming is. If you do it say in front of your house, what about the trees? What about the currents? What about
So that means in this whole system, everything is what? Interconnected in not just random, exactly, some random manner. It is so intricately put together to meet with all my needs. But if I mindlessly disturb the whole ecology of things, then what am I doing?
Cause and effect. Like in our actions, there's a reaction.
I am disturbing this whole Indra's net. When I disturb that, then what happens? Everything ultimately comes back to me. When it comes back to me, then I say, oh, poor me, I didn't do anything to deserve this. From one non-understanding to the other. Okay? So that means dissatisfaction has to change to what? Gratitude based on what? Based on knowing. Based on knowing how not only we are interconnected, but there is an extremely sophisticated system within which we are interconnected.
And actually, from what you said, I mean, we may be the financial capital and all this power, but the whole city depends on rain for water.
Absolutely.
Because there are no mountains, no rivers flowing in. So Mumbai waits for the monsoon. If it rains, you have water, otherwise you don't.
Otherwise you don't. And that's what people told me, that, oh, wait till May and there will be no water also. I said, wow. This Bihar lake and Powai lake has to fill. Otherwise there is no water. Yeah, absolutely.
Only rain is the only source of our water.
Yeah.
You said one statement, understanding interconnectedness takes it from isolation to what?
Connection. From dissatisfaction to gratitude. You have to hey, this is the whole system is working. Okay? And finally, it has to evolve you from being a consumer to being a contributor. That is the highest expression of your growth. Because the system is designed in a way that you are given a lot more than you can ever give back. Essentially, it's a benevolent system. Every need of yours is taken care of. You're born as a child. How long does it take for some animal, the birds to be independent? Huh? In a very few days, they fly off, they go off. But a human child is born what?
Dependent,
Completely dependent. You don't know how to cook your food, you don't know how to drink, you don't know how to walk, you don't know how to speak. And you are given parents. Parents hopefully, and most of them do. For those parents, you become more important than themselves. That is what nature's mechanism. When your survival becomes more important to them than they themselves. That is amazing design to protect a child. Those emotions, have you created? Have I created? That we are given with that design. Benevolent. Okay, all along, wherever you go, okay, all this, you go and study any one thing, right? You study physics. How many people have spent hours thinking on physics and come up with all these theories? It now becomes available to you to be known. Imagine if you had to rediscover everything.
Yeah, that's what then allows the future generations to discover more based on that.
Based on, we always build on knowledge, and it's a contribution of how many individuals. Somebody sitting out there thinking, contributing their whole life to science has contributed to what you're learning. You don't even know who that person is. Okay? The system is extremely extremely benevolent. Then what all the friends who come along with you, what do they do to you?
They make you grow.
They make you grow. Absolutely. Even the fights that you have had with them, they help. In what? They enrich you in some way. But all this, when the fight actually happens, what is your perspective? He's so bad and he's so mean, and how could he do this to me? But as you grow, and as you say, hey, you are living in that system, everybody contributed to you being who you are. Okay, then the whole thing becomes what? One whole, when every experience can enrich you. Okay, so therefore there is this whole thing about this system within which you are born, and that the system is designed in a way that it takes care of all your needs. That means it is giving you everything that you need. Now, where is our focus?
What we think it's not giving us.
Our whole focus is everything that we have, we take for granted. And everything that we don't have is what?
Reason to be sad.
Reason to be sad.
Dissatisfaction.
Dissatisfaction. That whole thing is grab. How can I manipulate the system to what? Grab more and more and more.
Based on our pratibhasika.
Absolutely. Based on our pratibhasika, because we don't even know that we come within this interconnected system. We just see ourselves as isolated beings. Okay? There, the minute you begin to become a contributor and not a grabber, that is showing how mature you are as a person. What you have understood about life, what you have understood about this empirical world. Okay? That shift from being a consumer to a contributor is a huge shift. Your heart has to open up. This limitlessness is not going to take roots in your being if you feel small and insignificant and you are this consumer, dissatisfied grabber. It will take no roots. It will not even ring as a reality. The nature is designed in a way that you can't avoid this growth. You have to, in order to be a deserving recipient of this knowledge. Certain amount of generosity, certain amount of wanting to help others, doing something. You can't avoid that process. If you feel that if you want to prepare yourself for this knowledge, this is non-negotiable. Every difficulty which can come your way, it can actually trigger that growth. I have seen people who have gone through some major, profound losses, and the only healthy way in which they have become they're kind of productive is by becoming big contributors. They have started some amazing projects and accomplished just too big a thing. Okay, so that means that growth is in that when you shift from the person who is wanting more and more to giving, that is the culmination of what? You're using your free will appropriately. Swadharma, Samanya Dharma and Lokasangraha. Lokasangraha means become a contributor. One was that first Samanya Dharma, which is your universal ethical values, it starts with that. Then Swadharma, duties and responsibilities. And ultimately it culminates into Loka Sangraha. Then it's complete. That is the highest expression of your free will. You use that capacity of choice to live a meaningful life. Become a contributor. Loka Sangraha. On duties and responsibilities. But here you are just not performing your duties and responsibilities and doing whatever. It is just stepping one step forward and becoming active to become, a contributor to people that you may know and people who you may not know, right? People do all these projects, what Teach for India. Yeah, cancer is so many times, and I just will stop. It's like way beyond the time. Okay, so I will talk about it next time. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.